welcome back to Open Window Politics. Today we're going to be doing a prediction between the current governor of Kentucky on the Democratic side, Governor Andy Beshear, versus the current vice president and most likely frontrunner for the 2028 presidential Republican nominee, that being J.D. Vance. So J.D. Vance rose to fame primarily as an author, and then later became a senator from the state of Ohio, and then fairly recently was picked as Trump's running mate in 2024, and then of course in 2024, Trump won against Harris, and the senator from Ohio, J.D. Vance, became vice president, and Andy Beshear, I'm not certain if he's had any political experience before becoming the governor of Kentucky. He probably has, but as you can see, he's the Democrat, and this is a safe red state, so it is a very impressive feat for a Democrat like Andy Beshear to be able to win in a swing state, for one, but even more impressive, a safe red seat. And I think that Beshear would probably be a good candidate if Democrats are hoping to win the 2028 presidential election, that he would be a good candidate to put forward. But we'll be going through the exact state calls throughout the rest of this video. So I'll start out with Nevada. I am going to add a tilt characterization. I don't think tilt will be needed, though, for this one. I'm going to put Nevada into the lean blue. This, I think, will be probably the easiest state for Democrats to win back as far as states that they lost in 2024. Nevada has generally had a fairly consistent history of voting for Democrats. They do have a Republican governor, however. They have 2 Democratic senators, 3 Democratic House members, as well as 1 Republican congressman. And I think the odds are looking good for Democrats, especially with some key voting demographics that Trump performed well with and Republicans performed well with in 2024. We've seen them kind of abandoning the Republican Party, and I think that would result in a victory in the state of Nevada for the Democrats. And then we get to Arizona. I think Beshear would probably be able to win Arizona. Biden was able to win Arizona in 2020. Now it's up to you if you think it's quite as good an election year for Democrats if the election were to be held today, but I would say that Beshear, with his moderate appeal, would be able to do well in a state like Arizona. That certainly favors moderates. They have voted for that fairly consistently. In 2024, however, the state did go to Trump by a lean margin, so I think it would be a tall ask for it to go blue, but I think that the Kentucky governor, Andy Beshear, would be probably a good option to help bridge the gap and result in a Democratic victory in the state of Arizona. Then I'll go to the other half of the Sun Belt. So I'm going to start with the state of North Carolina. North Carolina, I'm going to put into J.D. Vance's column. I think that Beshear would have a real opportunity here. He is probably one of the better Democrats of the top contenders that they could put forward as far as electoral possibilities and outcomes, but I think it would probably not quite be enough to win the state of North Carolina, so that is going to remain in the Republican Party's column, in this case J.D. Vance's column. So that's going to be the first swing state J.D. Vance wins, bringing us to 242 to 235. And then I accidentally skipped over the district here in Nebraska. I'm going to put that into the lean blue as well. This district even went to Harris in 2024, so it isn't too surprising that with the national environment certainly favoring Democrats more so now than in 2024, that it would result in a Democratic victory in that congressional district, thereby granting 1 more electoral college vote to Andy Beshear. So that leaves us with Georgia and the Rust Belt. I'll do Georgia first. Georgia I'm going to put into the tilt blue rating for Andy Beshear. Like I mentioned with Arizona, Biden was able to win Georgia. Now is a pretty favorable environment for Democrats, and I think that Andy Beshear might even do better as a candidate against a candidate like J.D. Vance in Georgia. Andy Beshear has had to portray himself as more of a moderate to win in this deep red state, Kentucky, as a Democrat, and I think that would play well, especially well in swing states where independents and moderate Democrats and Republicans are looking for middle ground bipartisan sort of candidate, and in this case less partisan like Andy Beshear. So that is going to be Georgia, and then that leaves us with the 3 Rust Belt states. I think that of them, I think Wisconsin is probably the most likely to end up in the Democratic Party's column, so that brings Andy Beshear to 269 to 235. So Beshear really just needs to win one of these two states. And if we do the math, if we give both states to J.D. Vance, that would result in a 269-269 tie. That's kind of a somewhat complicated process involving the House of Representatives, but I don't think that that will be a problem. I'm going to go, I think Michigan is probably the second most likely to end up in the Democratic Party's column. And I do think of the Rust Belt states that Pennsylvania would probably be J.D. Vance's best hope at winning. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter if he wins the state of Pennsylvania. It would still be any sure victory. And I think in this case, the Rust Belt would probably vote together. It has fairly consistently for the last while. So I'm going to put the state of Pennsylvania into Andy Beshear's column, giving us 303 electoral college votes for Andy Beshear to 235 for J.D. Vance. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.